Hey everybody, welcome to the garden. I hope you're having a great day. Shout out to the lemon and lime lovers and everybody in between. It's time for the market overview. And if you're interested in any of the services I provide, please check out the links in the description below for both the Patreon and Discord. Okay, so let me unmute here. All right, guys, so we are currently recording. So let's go over the market. So we're going to start with the dollar. So currently the dollar is looking quite good, and we should expect now for the dollar to make its way towards these even highs up here. Okay, so towards about 103.572, and it's actually tapping up towards almost 104, and then we will likely see a slowdown around this area. So as we're coming into the daily downtrend line, so the reason why we want to see this currently is because we took out these equal lows right here. All right, so we took out the sell side liquidity there, and now the next major target is going to be the buy side liquidity at these equal highs. So we want to see that get tapped into. Once that happens, and once we come into the daily downtrend line, we'll likely get some resistance, or just supply will start hitting the market, and we'll have a pullback. Now the next step will be, are we going to get a higher low from that pullback? And if we do, the probabilities increase dramatically that we will break through this daily downtrend line, break out of that track, and make our way all the way up back towards 106 to potentially even 108. So back towards this general zone here. If we were to fail up here and then show no signs of a higher low forming here or down here, etc., then the next step would obviously be where we're moving under this low here and making our way back down to 98, where we'll pretty much enter the monthly bullish fair value gap zone. But that is the least likely path. More likely we're going to break up, then break down, make a higher low somewhere in this zone, and then make our way up back towards 106 to maybe even 108. So I am short term, I am going to be bullish on the dollar, and then mid-term, as we come into this level, I'll turn bearish, and then finally, once we see some sort of lower, higher low pivot here, we'll be looking for potential upside to those levels that we're looking at. Okay, all right, next is the Dow, and we're going to actually see that being reflected in the US indexes, the idea that they're going to be weakening out. So noticing how the Dow has broken up here, what is it doing? It's starting to consolidate. So we'll let the drawings load up, and we'll see exactly where it is consolidating, and it's quite important if you see where it is actually consolidating. So pull out just a little bit here as those drawings hopefully load up soon. Here we go. All right, so came into the pivot here, which is buy side liquidity right here. All right, so we broke through, and the moment we broke through, we had some supply hit, we had a slowdown in the rise, and we're currently consolidating. What I would look for now is, as the dollar's rising up, just continued consolidation, then a short-term pop up here, maybe even taking these highs as the dollar finds that higher low pivot, and then once that is found, look for the rejection and then continuation. We may not take the high here, we may actually just make another equal high or slight lower high. Still, we do want to see these lows here, these equal lows here, being ultimately taken. The sell side liquidity under these lows is going to be the most optimal target for sellers to hit. Okay, so we're going to probably see over the next coming weeks a Dow breaking down to about 33,600, 33,500, and then we'll end up seeing, are we going to make that higher low pivot, or are we going to make a more bearish structure, right? So we'll just have to wait and see how price action is built from there. But overall, it looks like off of this run up, we are nearing the end. Now, it doesn't mean we're going to be breaking all the lows down here, but this run up, this leg up is likely done, and we are likely going to see a reversal lower, at least down towards these levels here at about 33,600, 33,500. And then if we get continued bearishness, something like this, where we break down and pop up, make a lower high, then look for this pivot down here at 32,500, ultimately being targeted. As long as we don't lose out on this low here, we are likely going to have continuation all the way up next year, back towards all-time highs, if that happens. Okay, it's a big if. Okay, it's not what we're calling for. It's just if these lows were to hold going into next year, it's very likely that we're going to have enough fuel sometime next year to challenge these all-time highs again. And off to S&P. All right, don't bet on that. Don't bet on that. That's just the potential. Just the potential. Right now, I'm leaning more towards us taking these lows and consolidating down here, and the bearish consolidation will likely commence, which will then lead us to kind of challenge these lows. But we'll just wait and see. S&P. So we're going to go over S&P a little bit here. We're going to draw some stuff on S&P. As you can see, the chart is naked. Unfortunately, a lot of the drawings I had on it disappeared. I probably hit delete by accident at some point, but currently it's very similar to the Dow. What did we do? We came in to this pivot right here, took this high on this low pivot right here, and the moment we did, we started to essentially reject and consolidate down, and now we are showing signs of, in my opinion, a bearish continuation. Might get a slight rise up as the dollar tries to find that lower pivot, and then once it does, break down further to ultimately get towards, in my opinion, this level right here. So this zone right here. And if it gets really bearish, then we're talking about these lows at 4,050. But that's only if, in my opinion, we're in like a bear market rally and we're going to have probably just bear market continuation, right? And that may happen sometime next year if we're going to confirm that. But as of right now, a bullish retracement would bring us towards these pivots here and towards the highs right here, these high pivots right here. Okay, so this is what we would probably see if we're going to hold a rally, right? If we're going to have a rally going into next year, we'll hold these levels. If not, then we'll be taking these lows, and it'll pretty much be probably a bear market going into next year at that point. So overall, I am liking what I'm seeing. This is a good retracement. We'll go deeper into this chart in the Discord. So if you're not in the Discord, then, well, you're missing out. It's free Discord. Make sure to hop on in. You'll find the links in the description below. Tomorrow, I plan to do a live stream where I will not be talking. I will just be building out the S&P chart, and I may do other assets as well. Okay, so if you're interested in that, make sure to join the Discord, and you can maybe see how I build charts. All right, next is NASDAQ. Let's see how the NASDAQ has been looking. So NASDAQ's been very interesting compared to the Dow and the S&P. NASDAQ's actually been leading the market. So it's been leading the markets going to the upside, and actually looks like it might be leading the markets going to the downside. So let's see how that is building out here. So take a look at this. So NASDAQ is far more pronounced already to the downside, already taking low pivots. But what's interesting about the NASDAQ is, let's actually wait for these drawings to load up here. You're going to notice that the NASDAQ's, it's been such a huge move up. It's pronounced so much that it could have, even in a bullish retracement, its retracement can be far deeper, far deeper than the S&P and the Dow. We're talking move all the way back down to like 13,700. So like 2,000 plus potentially drop. All right. Ridiculous. Huge drop. So what do? We actually tapped towards pretty much the red line of the NASDAQ, right? So we came to the high, the all-time high consolidation. So this is where the order block is, the fair value gap is. We came there, tapped it, immediately failed off, and now we are breaking down. Beautiful bullish continuation, a bearish continuation, and we should see a break back down towards the orange zone here. However, this can go far deeper, all the way back down to the high pivot here, or even all the way down here to these pivots here, and still be bullish. Okay, and still be bullish. All right, as long as it holds, essentially, as long as it holds this low down here, we're pretty much golden on the NASDAQ for continuation to the upside in the long term. Okay, we're talking on the weekly and monthly charts. If we do start to lose out on this level, the odds of this holding is going to be really difficult. But overall, there's a beautiful bullish retracement. We are going to have a bearish bias in the short term. So as the daily is continuing lower, I don't think we're going to see any major demand into the NASDAQ until we get towards this low here at about 14,700, and then into the orange zone, which is around 14.5 to about 13.9. Okay, so we'll likely see continuation of upside from here if next year is going to be as bullish as I think it may. My reasoning is, I do think the Fed is getting close Not there yet, but they're getting close to pivoting and truly easing again. One of the bigger hints is the Bank of Japan. The Bank of Japan is easing, and the Bank of Japan is in front of all the central banks. They are always ahead. If you think I'm wrong, you should go back and check out history. Go check out whenever the Bank of Japan does, they're always a quarter or two, sometimes 3 quarters ahead of every other central bank in the world. Okay, because unlike every other central bank in the world, at least in the Western world, the Bank of Japan is not only the lender, the last lender, the lender of last resort, they're also the buyer of last resort. They buy stocks, they buy bonds. Our Federal Reserve in the States do not buy stocks directly in the market, unlike Bank of Japan. So Bank of Japan is in a much more fortuitous position for itself. All right, so it's already starting to buy bonds for Japan, and I do think that central banks will be following shortly, whether it's this coming quarter or maybe sometime in the first quarter of next year. We're likely going to see easing coming back into the markets, and if that happens, well, prepare for probably more upside and risk on assets, but the economy will probably lose the floor that it's trying to build. All right, next is oil. So let's hop into the oil chart, and unfortunately, oil has been playing out as predicted, and I say unfortunately because, well, oil is this chart is a great representation of the cost of living, right? So I'm very bullish on it, unfortunately, because that's what the chart's saying, right? I've been saying all throughout down here that oil's bullish. Pretty much as we've been trading in this blue zone, I've been warning all throughout here, watch out, oil's bullish, and it is, and we've blown up from there. We've come into this bearish fair value gap. However, it's very unlikely that this is the end of this move up. We're likely going to do exactly what my doodle's showing, where we're going to break back down, form a higher low, whether it's here or down here, and that higher low will then lead to more upside, probably back towards at least 90, but in my opinion, more likely towards these equal highs here, these equal pivots at about 95-ish, and then we may see some downside from there. But in my opinion, if you go on the weekly and monthly charts, you'll find that this is just the beginning. That will likely lead to a bullish pullback and then another leg of continuation all the way back towards $100 plus. Okay, oil is just getting started. It's just getting started, unfortunately. So make sure if you are looking to get things, things that you need, make sure to do it and try and get a good storage of them, because who knows what's going to happen. And if you've been watching the news, at least in the States here, we have shipping companies, transportation companies all going out of business. And a lot of that has to do with just inflation, but also the rise in fuel pricing, right? And that's just going to unfortunately get worse. So, you just want to make sure, use the charts to try and prepare yourself for the future. You have a potential view into the future, and the probabilities are telling us to look for more upside in oil. So that does mean the cost of things, whether it's fuel or food, will go up. So where you can, just slowly add some things here and there. Okay. All right. And also, if you want an oil position, you probably want to look for ideas to go long. If you're in the swing trade service, we are in USO, and we're just chilling in the long, and we've been chilling in the money there for a while. All right, next is gold and silver. Gold and silver. Okay, so let's pull up here. Okay, I'm just making sure everything's getting loaded up perfectly. All right, so gold so far has also been following a similar track now. Next week's going to be pretty important. So if next week we're going to have a strong dollar fast, then we're going to be looking for the lows coming out. And if that getting taken out, if that happens, then it's not following my path. So if you recall from my last recap, what I was calling for is pretty much this low here, and then looking for a higher low to form to kind of create this grinding rising structure. Okay, so a bearish structure that will then ultimately lead to a breakdown back to these bullish fair value gaps here. Now, if the dollar strengthens heavily, or at least quickly next week, then we're likely going to see something like this, where you break down like this, and then potentially do something like this. And if this happens, my bias is going to change dramatically in the short term. It's going to be far more bullish than bearish. Okay, my previous bias was that we're going to be short-term to mid-term bearish and then long-term bullish. This would change me to short-term bearish and mid to long-term bullish. So essentially, if that were the case, and we're going to find out early next week, something like this, and we go into a grinding structure, kind of tightening into these fair value gaps like this, then what I'm going to be looking for is eventually bullish continuation. And if that were to happen, though, that would then get me to question what the dollar's going to kind of look like, right? Because if this happens while the dollar maybe is going up to like 108, it may imply it moving up very slowly, right? Not rapidly, slowly. Or maybe it won't be 108. Maybe it'll be like 105 only, or 105.5. Maybe it'll be a little bit more lackluster than I'm expecting. So, this is gonna be pretty interesting to see the inverse of the dollar. If it does follow my original idea, which right now it still is the most probable path, where we are, just gonna break down, and then we're gonna have this rising structure like this, okay? Then we're gonna be looking, like I said, short-term, mid-term bearish, where we break down back into this fair value gap here, come down pretty hard after this accumulation, or I should say this distribution that's happening here, and then look for another kind of bearish structure like this that then leads to another breakdown towards a lower end of this larger fair value gap, and maybe even down towards 1800 to 1815. Okay, so back down towards here. This is still the more likely path currently. But once these lows get taken out, let's say next week, this idea is no longer viable. Okay, it's not what's likely to happen anymore. So we'll be watching next week very closely on gold. Next is silver. Let's take a quick look at silver. See how that's been doing. So silver's been pretty interesting over these last couple of weeks, as gold has been lackluster. Silver's actually had its time, right? It's been having some nice big moves kind of on its own. Been a lot more trendy compared to gold rather than grindy. Notice what happened here, break down, pop up really hard, take out this high pivot right here, and then failed off of this bearish fair value gap, and now we've just come down pretty decisively. Now we're trying to hold, right? We're trying to hold, and it's a similar story to gold. It's gonna rhyme with gold like always. So if gold does what what I've been planning, or I shouldn't say planning, what I've been mapping out, right? So then we'll just look for another breakup. But unlike gold, I don't see it just taking the highs. I actually see silver going in more towards like a squeeze, or kind of like an advanced range structure that will eventually lead to distribution and then the breakdown, right? So I ultimately do see silver going down towards 2150, 22 flat, and then eventually maybe even down towards sub 21, going to like 20.5, 20.6, around there, okay? But it'll follow gold for the most part. Don't really need to overthink silver, but I will say if gold does take its highs, right? So if it does do this grindy structure like this, just repeatedly taking previous highs, do not expect that out of silver. I don't expect something like this to happen, where you're just seeing this, because it will be building out a totally different structure if it does that. What's likely going to happen is you'll go into more of like a neutral squeeze structure that will have more of a distribution bias, so a slight bear bias, coupled with gold's bear bias. It'll just heighten the probabilities of a breakdown. All right. Now let's take a quick look at Bitcoin, see what's going on with Bitcoin and crypto in general. Might touch on MATIC as well, since that's a free trade for everyone. And yes, if I do free trades, whether you're in the swing trade service or not, I'll do at least one free trade of stocks and crypto, though it's not completely always one. Sometimes if there's no trade, there's no trade, but if I get a chance, I'll definitely provide a free trade here and there. So if you're not in the Discord, make sure to check that out. So currently with Bitcoin, it's been pretty interesting observing it and watching, and also watching social media, right? So I do like to watch what other big names are saying in the space, what regular people are saying, and it's pretty interesting how much doubt there is. There's a lot of people who are super bullish, there's a lot of people who are super bearish, but it's just breeding doubts, right? Doubt that there's going to be more upside, any significant upside beyond like 32,000. In my opinion, I do see mid-30s still in the ballpark, okay? Obviously, we do have a long bias, a bull bias here in the Lemon Garden, because we are long currently. But I am looking for at least a move back into this, back towards this bearish monthly fair value gap. We actually haven't revisited it, so I would like to see us moving back into here. So about 35,000 I do think is in the ballpark. Okay, we will be getting big news as we get closer and closer to September, so we'll get more of an idea of what the Fed is really thinking after the previous PPI and CPI news that came out last week. So that will give us some sort of idea what we can expect maybe Bitcoin doing into the end of the year. In my opinion, though, the price action has been pretty clear. At least right now, anytime you see a big move up and then a grind lower like this, now it's not super perfect, doesn't have to be. Price action's alive. Okay, you want to remind yourself that price action is representative of people's thoughts, ideas, their convictions. So it's never always clean. Sometimes you have hypocrites. Sometimes you have people who were wrong, right? And this is all happening in here. So that's why I keep these blue lines here. Not to say, oh, this is a bull flag, but to show you that how unclean it is. It doesn't follow the lines all the time. It's not like color within the lines, okay? But the bias is what's important. So whenever you have a big move up and then you have a grind lower that tends to lean downwards, right? To grind, you tend to have a bull bias, okay? That's how this tends to work. So I have to have a bull bias right now, and I do think that's what we're kind of seeing, right? So, we grinded lower, we finally had a break up, and now we're trying to make it slight. It's hard to see, but we're trying to make potentially a higher low here, okay? Trying to get this higher low potential structure here where we broke up, and now you have this low pivot right here at 29,215. If this can hold as a pivot, you might see something like this and then lead towards ultimately continuation to make to that next move up going towards the mid 30s, and maybe if there's enough doubt even low 40s, 40, 41, 42. For us in the Lemon Garden, I will be closing out the longs probably around there unless price action is very, very, very clear and decisive telling me to hold. I will be leaning towards closing around the mid 30s and potentially, again, maybe a higher 30s, but price action will have to be very, very clear for me to decide to not do that. But you do want to be somewhat nimble with price action, right? If you're getting very good at reading price action and price action's telling you X and Y is happening, then you should trust it. Okay, but overall bullish in my opinion, at least in the short term. We'll see how it develops over the next week or two, but notice it's just a repeat of what's happening here. So we may get the same response, a big blast up through. Now it is much smaller, so I wouldn't expect it to move exactly the same. It may not have enough strength, but so far the bias has been very, very similar. Okay, and let's take a quick look at MATIC as well. So we'll take a quick look at MATIC as well. That way we can see if anything's changed there. Let's pull up MATIC here. So this is, again, like I said, a free trade for all the Lime lovers. So MATIC, it's been a great coin for us overall. I've been, kind of just like trading that one for the free members. Not that it's my favorite coin or anything. It's just had really good price action over the last couple months. So I feel like I've done really well with it. So I figured why not just keep with it. We got a great long on it before where we were able to buy somewhere around down here. We sold around up here. And now, in my opinion, it has set up for another long buy structure here. Now we're at slight drawdown here, but so far it's holding the 1 day bullish fair value gap, and I leave these fair value gaps on the charts for a reason, even though it gets filled, right? So these did get filled, but there's a good reason to leave them on. A lot of times they turn into price interaction zones, so just demand zones or supply zones if it's bearish like this, right? So in my opinion, it's really good to keep them on. Now eventually you want to take them off, but as of now, when you're just trading in the general area, it's good to keep them on. And you can see this bullish fair value gap was clearly filled completely, and yet price still respects it, that it's just good to keep on the chart in my opinion. All right, but taking a look at this, reason why we went long is because it's the starts, right? We bought into this bullish fair value gap right here, if you can see that, and then it's just the start of a potential higher low structure. So what I've been looking for is, reason why we bought here is because we had an overextension here. We're able to buy somewhere down here, I don't remember the exact area, and then we sold somewhere up here. Again, don't remember the exact area. I look at a lot of charts. Forgive me. If you want to find the exact area, just go onto the Discord and go check out closed closed positions crypto, and you can probably find the exact place I got in and out. I just don't remember all off the top of my head. But essentially, we bought into this drop here because as I've been looking for, we've had a continuation down, looking for a higher low structure to form, whether that's here, down here, or even where we bought, doesn't really matter, etc. We're looking for a higher low structure that will then lead towards pretty much testing the buy side liquidity zone over here, and then potentially closing the trade out here, or coming back to the key monthly level I have marked up here about 1.2 overall. So this was just a double dip, kind of trade, and so far I'm feeling very good about it. Even though we're in drawdown, I am still looking for that upside to at least towards this pivot up here at about 89 to 90 cents, and then maybe all the way back up towards $1 plus, and we could easily get to that key monthly level as it overlaps with the bearish monthly fair value gap. You see a trade through on the daily, but on the monthly, this monthly fair value gap actually was not closed through, only wicked through. And then we also have this bearish daily fair value gap right here. Okay, so we have these zones right here, and we have another one right there. So there's plenty of supply up here to grab, plenty of liquidity to grab, minus even the buy side liquidity up here. So I'm really loving this situation that we're in. I'm not planning to add on to this here. Obviously, if you're in the swing trade service, I like to start small and then build out positions bigger. It's the safest way to go about things, at least in my opinion. Also the most consistent way. So if it does break down towards, this lower fair value gap down here, I do have plans to add on down there. But currently, we're in a situation where it's just kind of just hold, wait, and see what happens. And if it does get up here, it's a great trade. We'll have MATIC will have treated us well for the past couple of months. All right, that is it. That is it for the overview. Again, if you have any questions about anything, make sure to leave a comment down below. I do like to read your comments. And also, if you want to ask me a question or just get in contact with me, make sure to join the Discord. That's the easiest place to get in contact with me. I'm usually always on, and if I don't immediately get to you, trust that I will eventually get to you. And yeah, if you're interested in any of those services, you'll find the details in the Discord and in the Patreon. Again, if you have any questions, please reach out. And disagreements, I do want to hear that as well. I do want to hear your ideas. All right, everyone, remember, be patient, be vigilant, and be nimble. I love you guys. Take care. Bye.